Sure.
Then we should be live.
Yeah, I'm just
Um,
closing all my 100 different tabs. So,
yeah, do that and your phone probably, right? I'm sure it'll be
yeah.
ringing off the hook.
Yeah.
Just when you don't want it to ring, it'll ring, right?
I
Uh,
know, I know. This is the important thing to do now.
yeah. Okay, I think we should be live, right? So, Karthik, like I was saying, super happy to have you on this live stream. And Springworks is my go-to resource on remote, right? And I think Springworks, it'll be not wrong to say Springworks is a flag bearer of remote in India, because you needed strong voices like yours, like probably Zerodha and Instamojo, to come out in the open and say that we are
Mhm.
committing to remote work, and that's how remote first, and that's how we want the future to be, right?
Sure.
I think thank you for doing that for all the rest of us, right, who also believe the same thing, because sometimes you do need a couple of flag bearers to lead the battalion, right? So thanks for
Hmm.
doing that. So with that, right, what I would want to do is like, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, uh, before Springworks and Springworks, and what do you guys do at Springworks? Why don't we start off with that?
Sure, sure. Hi everyone, this is Karthik. I did my bachelor's from Manipal back in 2012, and then went on to do my master's at Carnegie Mellon in kind of machine learning and kind of NLP, and then before Springworks, I've kind of done, I guess, two, three startups. Did my own company back when I was in Manipal, and then we eventually got shut down by Facebook, but had reached like around 3 million people. Was a kind of fun little application which came from my own need. And then in the US, I joined this company known as Science, which is like a startup studio. It's like similar to YC, but more as a co-founder than an incubator. And I
Right.
was joined them as an intern, and then eventually became the CTO there. Science is kind of famous for their Dollar Shave Club exit, which is to
Okay.
Unilever for $1 billion,
Right.
and now they have a bunch of other exits. They're also pretty active in the blockchain space, so they've been around for almost 10, 11 years. It was started by the ex CEO of MySpace, so he
Okay.
sold MySpace and then started this company. And I joined them from India. Then I went to US, started working with them. This was where my holidays and spring break and everything used to be. And then when I graduated from Carnegie Mellon is when I decided to start this company, Springworks. It was known as Springroll back then.
Springworks, yeah.
And Mike in Science, Mike, who's the CEO of Science, was the natural kind of partner we wanted. So decided to work with them, and it's been working well. It's been almost for 7 years. Lots of ups and downs. Literally went from $50,000 a month in revenue to like zero. Went from a team of 20, 25 to just me, and then I took a break as well.
Okay.
Then came back to kind of building the team, and now we are around 200 to 20 people, fully distributed all across the world, not just India.
Okay.
India is the biggest chunk. So
Right.
like cities like Jammu, Coimbatore, Guwahati, Jaipur, Delhi, like it's pretty distributed. If you ask me, any one city, maybe Bangalore has the highest
Right.
concentration, maybe
Mm-hmm.
like 30 people, but we have like Vijayawada, Vizag, and whatnot, right? So very, very distributed. What we do is all in the HR tech space, so help companies right from how do you hire to how do you background verify that person, how do you engage that, how do you engage with them, like setting up rewards recognition,
Right.
employee pulse, how do you do team bonding with remote or hybrid work, how do you kind of break out these silos, like a salesperson talking to a dev person, ops versus product and whatnot. So all around kind of way people work right from the first step, which is hiring, to the last step, which is say the person leaving the company. So all the kind of steps in between.
Right.
Right now we have three kind of products which with like a decent amount of traction. One is Spring Verify, which is our background verification product, and then the second one is Engage With, which is kind of helps people with engagement, employee recognition, Pulse, all in the new age office, which is Slack and Teams. So not really, we don't have a web product, I say.
Mm.
And then we have trivia, which is all around team bonding. How do you kind of bring people together with say fun games and break out these silos? How do you
Right.
kind of get to know people? How do you build a friend at work? How do you kind of go beyond work, kind of create these spontaneous conversations to have that personal connect and not just transaction.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. It's been a nice journey kind of doing this. Primarily, we've been very US focused,
Mhm.
but pleasantly, in the last, I guess, 2 years, we have actually received a lot of interest from India. So
Right.
now we have a decent amount of clients from India. I would not say as much as US, but the Indian piece is kind of becoming bigger. I
Right.
personally moved back around 4 years ago from the US to India, and this was the goal, to be right. Like, okay, how can we, as in, nice to have customers there, but would be nice to kind of see the Indian market mature, where they start kind of seeing value and HR solutions.
Yeah.
I think that has been a very pleasant change in the last 2 years, with pandemic and funding and companies increasingly becoming employee first, and
Right. Right.
employees being the drivers of the market more than anything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And is it more tech startups or SMBs or large enterprises? What's the mix like for your clientele, both in India and abroad?
So in India, it's mostly tech startups as of now. There are some enterprises. So like Flipkart is a customer. So there are enterprises as well, like
Right.
Apollo, Godrej, whatnot. But then I think the focus for them is not, they still not have seen the pinch of say the great resignation drive, or they're still more in the driver's seat than the employees.
Then
So I
abroad.
think that conversation will slowly
Mm.
change. Tech is where the shift has happened very
Right.
quickly, like especially in the US, three say 4 5 years ago, more so in the last 2 years, and that has now come to India as well. So
Right. Right.
I think in India, in the US, it's a mix. In India, it's mostly tech startups, especially in the employee engagement space. If I
Right.
say engage with Trivia, so I think that will slowly change. Like you can say Flipkart is a tech startup, but for and it's bigger than most enterprises in
Yeah.
India,
Yeah.
right? So it's not. I don't really call that as a tech startup anymore, right? So I think
Very true.
they
Yeah.
have that mentality, so which is nice. So they want to be employee first. They always want to be attractive to employees and candidates and whatnot. So I think everyone's kind of thinking about that, right now.
So my simple definition of a startup and enterprise is like if if any decision goes to 2 3 levels, then you are no longer a startup, right? So yeah, working with these companies, the sales cycles could be like God knows what, right? So anyway, so
Yes,
then,
yes,
then you
yes.
harden into that enterprise
Correct.
stage, right? So great. I think this is. I mean, it's probably an event for another time to see how an ML AI guy got into HR tech. That's another interesting story to uncover maybe in another day. But getting to our topic, right?
Hmm.
So you were one of the first few companies to kind of announce publicly,
Hmm.
right, that
Hmm.
you're going to be remote first, right?
Yeah,
And again, I mean, many companies did do that. I mean, as in
yeah,
they all wanted to kind of say the buzzword of remote
correct.
and work from anywhere, but then we know the reality. What's happened? A lot of them have gone back to the offices, or at least
Yes,
they're pulling people back to offices and all that silently,
correct.
very openly, right? But
Yeah.
like kind of want to kind of take you back into March
Hmm.
2020 and the 3 months following that.
Hmm.
You actually shifted, not just, I mean, obviously everybody was remote, but then you
Hmm.
also consciously moved towards a remote first model, right? It's not just
Correct.
making office work remotely, but kind of go remote, right? So
Correct.
can you tell us like what prompted you to go remote,
Hmm.
number one, and number two, what were the tough decisions, challenges, things that you
Hmm.
had to go through? What were your employees saying? What was
Yeah.
the leadership saying? Can you kind of take us through that time?
Sure, sure. So some context. So before, say, March 2020, which is when the pandemic kind of hit, India and US, we were 1 day a week, kind of work from home, and then you decide that day. It's not really based on the team, but up to you.
Right,
And then some people were all, like fully remote as well. Like say, like a handful of them, maybe say 10% of the office was fully remote,
right,
and just because they've been with us for a while, and they wanted to move back to their family, so out of Bangalore, and they're like,
Right.
oh, we want to spend time with them, and can we still continue working with you, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, obviously, why would we want to lose them, right? So I think there was some kind of background there, and then with pandemic, we I think went remote the first week of March, and then we started doing a bunch of surveys, right? So one of the key questions was, if you have a question, if you have a doubt, how much time does it take for you to get an answer? Like 5 to 15 minutes, 15 to 30, 1 hour plus, right? Options like that. And
Right.
then how much time do you spend on, say, meetings, every day? And in the initial, say, 4 to 5, 6 weeks, the responses were not at all good, right? People, everyone said takes 15 to 30 minutes, and 30 minutes plus, we never get an answer in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We're spending 4 to 5 hours on meetings every day, because that's just how we work, right? So it's just the natural way. I have a doubt, I'll come, ping you on Slack, send you a Google Calendar invite or a Zoom
Right.
invite, and let's just get on a call, right?
Right.
Or pick up the phone and call you, right? We do mostly it's online calls. People don't really share numbers. We don't want to do WhatsApp and stuff like that. Kind of having a distinction between personal and
Mm-hmm.
professional life. But these kind of meetings increased, right? Stand-ups from 15 minutes ended up becoming 30, 45 minutes and stuff like that. So I think we kind of started seeing these problems. People were burnt out, and a lot of people attribute this to work, but I think a lot of it is also just overall pandemic, and kind of the
Yeah.
constant
Sure.
like fear. You're not getting out of the house, you're doing everything on your own. Like Indians are very bad at kind of domestic work, right? And we just never used to it, right? As in, I give this example. Before going to the US, I never ever bought vegetables in my life, right? And that's something I should not be proud about, but it's just how it is. So pandemic kind of forced all of these things on us. We started learning, we started doing it. Some people took it positively, some did not, right? And but we were still at home, so I think work was our kind of only outlet
Right.
for because there was nothing else.
Socializing also. Yeah.
Yes, socializing as well. So we had these chai calls, Zoom calls, all the kind of typical stuff most companies did. Then after that, we said, let's try to actively improve this, because this is obviously not COVID is not like a short term thing. We had not decided to like go fully remote, maybe like say until I think June or July. So we like, okay, let's try to improve this. Let's get more async. GitLab is the leader in remote across the world. They
Yeah.
have a very nice remote course as well, which leaders can do it, employees can do it, companies can do it. I did that course myself. A lot of the leadership did that. Employees have also done it. It's
Mm-hmm.
like a required course when you join the company.
Okay.
And a lot of people end up doing it. Some people skim through it, stuff like that. And it kind of tells you how actually remote works. And as you said, remote is not like not working in office, right?
Yeah.
Remote
Yeah.
is actually a different way of working. It's the async versus sync.
Correct.
I
Yeah.
think that's the easiest definition.
Right.
And async is when you have to reach out to someone, like just say, okay, this is the doubt I have, this is what I have done till now, this is when I need an answer for, right? As in when I need an answer by, right? Next 1 hour, 3 hours, and most things you'll be like, fine, give it to me by end of the week, give it to me by end of the day. I don't need an answer now. So you don't want
Mm-hmm.
that person to drop everything and
People else.
focus
Yeah.
on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like kind of patting on the back and say, oh, can you answer that, right? And that's never 5 minutes. You always say, can I talk to you for 5 minutes? It's never 5 minutes, right? Right.
Right.
So small things like that, kind of actively working through those improvements, using kind of these tools. Like we use bot known as Trooper for stand up updates on Slack, using Jira, GitHub, Trello, kind of these tools to automate most of the manual processes, most of the kind of work which is, say, done manually, which is just kind of updates and things which I've done yesterday, things like whatever, this is the estimate for this sprint, this is what we need to do, stuff like that. Forcing yourself to automate that and moving to an async fashion,
Right.
right? So
Right.
I started doing that personally. Team also started doing it. I send an update, every week to the entire company, and like I started sending a recorded video, so a text plus recorded video, and that was a big change. People appreciated that. Instead of doing like a town hall of we were,
Right.
I think, 100 people, 95 people back then, doing a town hall, getting all 95 people on a 30-minute call and figuring out all the logistics and muting everyone and all that
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
And
it's
then
kind
it's
of
mostly
more,
one way, right? It's 90%
yeah,
one way. So then, yeah,
90% one way, and as in you can't do more than one way, right? Because if everyone starts talking together, it's a
yeah,
mess, right? As in
right,
a physical world, you can have kind of these groups and like three people, four people. Here, everyone start talking at the same time. Zoom is not made for that, right? And
right,
as in, there's no technology which is made for it, at least as of now. Right? So we had these kind of challenges with this. So we started forcing ourselves to go to async, and then
right.
very soon we saw a big increase in productivity, people being happier. We did the same pulse multiple times, four
Mm-hmm,
times,
mm-hmm,
every 6 weeks. And there
right,
was a clear, update there. People like, yeah, I am not blocked by people. I am not, I have complete clarity on what I want to do. And if I don't have clarity, I have a way to get an answer.
right,
And it's not taking me 1 hour. Like if I need an answer quickly, it takes me 5 minutes. And that's rare. And then you're spending less time on meetings. You're not spending 5 hours, you're spending 1 hour, 30 minutes, 2 hours on some days, right? So I think these kind of metrics were very important. And
right.
then productivity was obviously very, very high. People were just generally happy. You're not spending 2, 3 hours in traffic every day,
Happy,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And you're only focusing on things which need to be done. You're way more structured about your day, because remote forces you to be structured, right? So you said have a lunch block in your calendar, have a evening block in your calendar. Let us know when you start the day, right? If you're on leave, tomorrow, just keep an update in Slack that you're all going to be on leave, right? Small things like that
right.
going to force you to be very structured, and
Mm-hmm,
you start seeing the benefits, right? Like a lot of our folks go say cycling at 11 a.m. and play badminton at say 3 p.m., right? Or take out 2 hours for lunch, right? So you kind of are able to enjoy the benefits. You're able
yeah,
to work at the time you want, to an to an extent. You're able to work from different locations, and you're like a lot of the team now, we have a vocation perk, so they go to Goa, and they work from there, right? And you are able to see those benefits, and that's when we said, let's move remote.
right,
This is obviously better for the company. The employees are happy, they're way more productive. There's a better way of working, which
right,
is the async. People have better lives. It's all more, a lot more about work life balance than just working say 15, 16 hours a day. And talent is also was one of the big reasons we are now able to hire anywhere in the country, in the
right,
world, right? Not just
right.
focused on Bangalore, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that was a big change, and there were people who moved back and said, we've never been more happy, right? Cost of living is less. We with families, we've kind of rekindled these kind of relationships from school and college days, and in our city, we're spending way less time in traffic, way more time with our family, like
Right,
be it kids or your spouse or your parents and whatnot, right? Like I've like in the last 2 years I've spent 6 months with my parents, right? I don't think anything like after I went to say Manipal, whatever the age of 18, I've ever spent that much time with parents,
right,
right?
right, right,
And I don't want to lose that, right? It's just a nice thing to have, and that's a big benefit of kind of working remote or hybrid, right? So that was one of the reasons why we did that. But the biggest was employees wanted it. It just seemed the right way, and people were way more productive.
right,
But that said, I don't think it's the right decision for everyone. You have to be a certain, as in you have to have a certain structure to the way of working. A lot of people, even in our company, is like, no, we don't like it, we don't want to do it, we like being in the office, we like being around people. And some people after some time decided to quit, which is fine. I'm always very clear, it's not for everyone. You kind of
yeah,
have to
yeah,
find your
very
balance.
true.
And I think it's partly the reason of COVID and just the way we have been brought up, right? If you think about, say, when how our parents used to work, 9 to 5, work done, right? Come home, that's your life, right? No laptops, no phones, none of that. Work does not come home, right?
Yeah,
Unless it's a very rare job, right? And now it's very different. Like we don't have hobbies, we don't do stuff outside of work. How many friends do we have outside of work? Right? Very few, right?
yeah,
We don't really go spend time with our say kids, or play like a sport, or go out so much, especially in the big cities like say
right,
metro cities, right? And that's not great. And that's one of the reasons why people like, okay, I don't have anything else to do, let me just work. And that's why let me just sit in the office because that's my you know social life. And
Right.
that's not a great thing for a society. We have to have other things because it's just not good for mental balance as well, and just not overall good as a family balance as well.
Very true. Yeah.
So I think that is slowly changing. Like now is actually maybe in the last year, people, especially in India, as in has been happening in the US for a while, where people are taking out Airbnbs, leaving up houses.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't have a permanent home. Like 3 months
Yes.
this place, 3 months in that place. People are doing that, and it's now happening as well. Like people are saying, I the only way I work is remote, right? And that is very very interesting because people are kind of in the driving seat, and this is how they want to work. This is what they want to do. This is the way of their working, and they are they like this life and they don't want to get back. So we've had employees who have left the company and came back, and because they just like the way we work, and they were not able to adjust to this new culture of being in the office every day. And even if the company is forced remote because of say COVID, it's still it's still the same thing. You are in calls 6 7 hours a day, and that's not async or remote at all, right? So I think people in the next few years, we will see this kind of group of people or this faction of people who will be like, I want to work remote, and that's the only way I
Yeah.
will work with you. I think that will only increase. So I think that is a very pleasant change
Hmm.
which is happening.
Definitely, definitely. And 1 year, almost a year and a half from that decision, right? What is a problem that still seems to be nagging remote of at Springworks? What is still continuing to haunt you, or you're still not solving that, right? Because it's
Sure.
you can never kind of fully address everything.
Correct. So I would say, three main things. One is kind of doing this async versus sync. Like people, like even I am kind of guilty of it. Sometimes you just still revert back to the old ways, which is, oh, can I talk to you for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Or you get into a meeting without a structure, right, without an agenda. So
Right.
that's not good at all. I think it takes, we have to unlearn, as simple as that, right? And it's not
Mm-hmm.
easy. Takes you to kind of unlearn years of what we have learned, and especially Indians are not very good at like presentation and communication skills and group projects and stuff like that, right? Like Amazon has this, Jeff Bezos has this famous thing, right? The first 5 to 10 minutes of a meeting is just reading a piece of paper, and everyone should just look at each other and do that, right? And that's just crazy. Like that just forces you to be structured, forces you to have context of the meeting, and you can do that so much better in async. So that's one.
Right.
Second is how you kind of recreate these spontaneity which you had in the office. And I don't know if the answer should be like, should you recreate 100% of it, should you recreate some of it, right? So I think finding that balance is important, right? There is value in having these just random conversations about like a particular problem, about something else, all like work kind of problems or challenges. And
Yeah.
because you, when you brainstorm, you end up on a solution. Some when you do it alone, it might take you a little bit more time versus talking to a person. But I
Right.
think the value is only 1 to 1, or maybe 3 people, 4 people. When it goes beyond four, then it's no longer, then it becomes a distraction, and you have way too many kind of voices. So like that famous two pizza rule. And so that's the second thing. The third thing is engagement, right? So that's not easy.
Mm.
And again, I don't think the engagement should be at the same level as the office, because in the office we used to spend 10 12 hours of work. Like tech culture has made us eat, like have breakfast, lunch, dinner, have all these perks, and then you end up spending so much time at the office, right? And that's the reason why, like, I think Google was the pioneer here to come up with whatever their 50th employee was a chef, right? No one had even thought about having like a chef as an employee, and that's the amount of focus they had in providing kind of good food and stuff like that, right? And one of the reasons to do that was people spend more time at office, right? Even with us, we had all three meals kind of catered, and you could have, and obviously naturally your engagement will be higher when you're
Right.
in the office, versus remote, because you don't have that socialized time of eating and chai and coffee and whatnot, right?
Right.
So that the third challenge is, how do you kind of have the engagement with the, similar to what you were in the office. And when I say engagement, it's a like a big bucket, but I think one of the challenges there is kind of breaking these silos. There is value in having like an engineer talk to a salesperson from time to time,
Right,
because
right,
it's good to have that context for both sides. um, Easier to do in the office, not so easy,
right,
remote.
right.
How do
You
you
gotta
do that?
sometimes cross pollinate that on purpose.
Yes, cross pollinate, stuff like that. So I think these three, is kind of still open ended, challenges.
Right,
I think a lot of it we've solved, a lot of it, but there are still, areas. And
right.
then obviously part of it is also because we are growing, we have new people coming in, and how do you kind of have that new person unlearn what they have done for the last, say a few years, 5 6 10 years, how much ever experience they have, and then kind of
Correct.
relearn this. And when they're relearning, they don't, it should not be that they are taking some of the existing employees to the old way of, say, sync working,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So it kind of makes this harder,
Right,
because it's almost like we are already in the process of learning and improving, and then we have kind of new people come in, jump on this bus, and then they kind of pulling them back, right?
right, right,
So you're kind of moving in both directions. So I think it's not super easy, and it will get better, right, as people
right.
also get more used to it. There's more documentation, and people start seeing values, as in value of working remote, which is
Right.
already happening.
Mm.
So I think companies can do a lot here, kind of help employees to see the value of async, and see the value of working from anywhere, in the country, in the world. So I think that's happening over the next few years. Tools will get better, right? So
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
the tools we have are getting so much better, right? Just internet, for example, has gotten so much better. Like if you just compare it with 3 years, 4 years ago, right? It's unimaginable how, much better it has gotten.
Absolutely.
Even things like Slack, and your like different tools you have on Slack, and just computer speed and stuff like that, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that kind of brings me to the
Mhm,
again the topic, right? We
mhm,
talked about engagement, continuing to
mhm,
pursue a challenge. Um, so how have you take? And again, you said
mhm.
when if I don't know if I remember the numbers correctly,
Hmm.
when you started when the pandemic started, you were 95, but you are now
Yeah,
at 195, right? So almost
225. Yeah, yeah,
or 225.
more
So
than
you're
double. Yeah,
already 100 more than how you started.
correct,
And all these hires have been remote, right?
correct,
Probably you have not seen them face
correct.
to face. Many of them, team
Yes,
members, are not
correct.
seen. So, how has been the employee onboarding? What did you have to rethink, rewire, reinvent?
Mhm.
As they say, right? What had to happen differently when it comes to employee onboarding at Springworks?
Sure. So, so the old way of doing an onboarding is like, say, sending an email, doing like a nice little graphic, so and so person is from so and so college, this has worked in so and so company, this city, likes to eat whatever, gulab jamuns, right, for example. And that's the, old way of onboarding. I think as in it's fine, people who want to read it, but you don't actually get to know that person well, which is what the onboarding is supposed to be, the
Right,
non-work aspect of it. And then in the office, it's easier because you kind of, maybe you introduce a person in a bigger setting, and then people end up talking to that person during lunch or dinner, or
right.
evening
Yeah,
snacks, right?
yeah.
So here what we do is, we run like a, trivia quiz on that person, like ask 5 questions, which of these places would you like to visit, right? Whatever, you know, Goa, Lisbon, Norway, stuff like
Right,
that, right?
right,
No one really knows the answers, but it's just a fun way of knowing that person. When it's a quiz, people like to participate, people like
right,
to kind of,
right.
answer and then guess. And then you start figuring out some common threads. Oh yeah, this person likes, badminton, this person likes to, cycle, this person likes to, read about, I don't know, as in play games, is interested in blockchain. Let me try to connect with that person offline, or like on a
Mhm.
DM, and then, take that forward, right?
Right.
So we kind of find these common threads, and people start doing that more. So that
Mhm.
really helps, getting the new person in the team, having that person develop, like, for lack of a better, word, a friend at work, right?
Mhm.
And then on the work side, having it very structured, right? So I have like a recorded video which is, say, sent to all, new, employees, like a 1 minute, just a intro video. We do like a, onboarding call. We have a buddy system, so you have like a, a person at work who's not who's like safe to talk to, ask questions about, oh, where do I get my salary slip? I have confusion on my salary structure. How do I ask it? Things you may not be very comfortable asking the HR or the CEO or your manager
Right.
for because you think, oh, you'll be judged, so you just ask someone at probably at your level, and that person has nothing to do with you, maybe in a different team and stuff
Right.
like that,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of having a buddy at work who's your champion, getting you up to speed in the company.
Mm-hmm.
Small things. Oh, on Fridays we do this event. Oh, you like to listen to pop music? We have this other person who also likes that, right? Type of thing. So I think that is where this really helps getting to know in the team, and then having a very good structure, like first week onboarding. These are the tasks to be done. These are this is what is expected. This
Mm-hmm.
is how you communicate with the team. Like having a good handbook, and then having these kind of touch bases, because it's a constant learning experience, right? Having like a call with the person at the end of week one, week two. So if you had to do this again, what would you do differently, or what would how would you onboard the next person? And if you are asking person at the end of first week, they will definitely have feedback, because you're never 100% perfect, right?
Correct.
As a company, we might have done one thing wrong, or this person had this one question which was not answered in our process, and now you're directly getting that. So you're getting that from that new employee, using that to improve your process, and you
Right.
constantly do that, and you end up reaching this stage where most onboardings work very smoothly. People are happy, laptops are shipped, and people know what to do on their first day. People know whom their manager is. People know whom their kind of buddy is.
Right.
They know how to get salary slips, submit reimbursements, get like a vocation thing, and get a laptop, get a monitor, all of those standard things you would want.
Mm-hmm.
And that works well. So it's making a process as much as possible, but still allowing some human element there, right? Which can be a video, which can be like a call, which can be just a quick Slack message to see, how is everything? Are you do you need anything else? Type of thing.
Right. And you talked about a course on remote a little while back, right? So
Yeah.
does every new joinee go through that process in the first few weeks of onboarding? And specifically, people who are not coming from, who have another job experience and coming into, when, like you said, the
Hmm.
unlearning part. So how do you do
Yes.
that as part of the onboarding exercise?
Yeah, so we do a Slack 101 course as well. So there's a Slack has their own course, and that's like a nice thing of threads and mentions and channels and all of these things. And then there is this GitLab remote course. So that's really useful in how does async work? When do you schedule a meeting? And if you schedule a meeting, how do you do it? Like how do you
Mhm.
check people's calendar? How
Right.
do you add a lunch block? How much advance notice should you give when you send a message? How what should it be? Stuff like that, right?
Right.
So we kind of do that, and this for all new employees. So I think it's available on GitLab's website. It's free of cost. There's a certificate as well if if you complete it and get it. So that really helps people get to this adapt to this new way of working.
Mhm.
And some people are very quick. Some people take some time, but I think in the end everyone kind of gets to work on this style. And as I said, it's not always for everyone, right? Some people will say, oh, I tried this for a month, I'm just not able to work. I want to get back in the office, right? And that's fine. If that is what people want to do, I think that's completely fine. Remote async is not for everyone, and I think it removes the need for managers, removes the need for micromanagement, removes the need for constant updates and stuff like that, and it's just a better way of working. So most people appreciate it, and take some time to unlearn and kind of learn this process. But
Right.
once you have the hang of it, you actually start seeing the benefits.
Right. So you mentioned managers, right? So I want to kind of pick on that specifically,
Yeah.
right? Because I think the maximum unlearning is for the managers, right? To kind of do um, uh, office versus async is like kind of a little challenging for somebody
Yeah.
who wants everybody the pulse of every team member and what's happening, and
Correct.
they want to take it from one desk and physically deliver it to another desk, right? Okay, this guy
Yes.
is
Yes.
done. Now it's your turn to
Correct.
do it. So
Correct.
how do you and specifically for people who are joining at managerial roles at Springworks,
Yes.
right, new
Yeah.
ones, how do you take them in and how do you get them to align with your way of working?
Sure. So I think Yeah, the word manager is also misused. I think managers, the traditional way of managing is exactly as you said, right? Just communicate decisions from one level to another, uh, manage people, for lack of a better word, right? Get updates, get into more micromanagement, kind of be that person if you need any doubts and questions and stuff like that. But I think the way we do it is very different, which is you're just a sounding board. You're not really focused on updates, as in you're responsible for the team's overall ownership, so you're kind of taking that ownership up, right? If one person for some reason is on leave and is not able to complete the task, then you kind of you know work on that and say, okay, I will take this up, or we'll kind of reassign, we'll work together to get this done because there is a deadline which you want to hit, right?
Right,
Or there is you there are updates are mostly done by tools. It should not be the job of the manager to get
right,
updates. So sometimes you may need to follow up if people are not taking that ownership and not having that responsibility. But it should not be the job of the manager to do ask for updates, because then, like, where is, if most of your work is just ending up in managing, then how does your kind of contribution come in, right? So that is not the ideal role.
right,
And so some managers who have been traditionally managing in, say traditional companies, in the offices, in the office and whatnot, it's very very hard for them, right? Because they like come here, they're like, oh, I don't have to do ask for updates, I don't have to say
right.
please do this by this date. Yes. Yes, so it's not an easy transition for them at all, right? And most of the times it just does not work out. So we have to be very careful when we hire someone who's, say, supposed to be managing. Most of the times I think individual contributors are better, and we are very very clear, right? Even if you come in, like, you will have a team working with you, and it's not that you are really, as in your job is to kind of get updates and things like that from them. You are a sounding board, you are an advisory board for them.
Right,
You are helping them unblock, you're helping them think about the bigger picture. You're helping people kind of say, I want to estimate this, I want to plan this out, and you are obviously conveying kind of decisions if you're part of a larger meeting where some decisions of the next roadmap is done, and communication is set. But it's not your job, or it's not your responsibility to be doing updates all day, right?
right.
So I think the transition, as you said, is very very hard, and and that is not really a transition which we can do well. It's more of how do you even fix it before the person come in, which is your hiring process, right?
Hiring the right person.
Yes,
Yeah,
hiring the right person is the better way to fix it, and not saying
right.
or doing the transition.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's yeah. It's a little difficult to untrain somebody who's been soaked in that way of working. And again, the individual contributor versus somebody who somebody who kind of wants to keep the. I mean, wants to run a puppet show, right? It's a little difficult,
Yes,
very difficult to change them
yes,
from that
yes.
kind of a mental state.
Yeah, so
So
async definitely removes a lot of the middle layer management, like,
right.
that is for sure.
So has it made Springworks
Mm.
a lot more leaner
Yes.
and lot more, the pyramid is no longer a pyramid, but it's a flatter out organization.
Yes, yes, definitely. So a lot of the folks will say, will report to me, just because it's a lot more flat, and a lot of the folks will have no, they will just have reporting to me just because whatever the HRMS needs a reporting system. But it's they're just mostly individual contributors working on projects, and because the communication is that good, right? You don't have to ever ask for updates. You don't have to ever like ask, okay, what about this, what about that, stuff like that. Everything is kind of facing more documented. There are minutes of the meetings and things like that, so the team is also aware, and you're thinking more bigger items. Okay, how do we get to the next level? What roles are missing in the company?
Right.
What kind of how do we help this person get to the next level, right? So you kind of having these kind of growth conversations, which is the better use of your time.
Sure. That's great. So I think a couple of takeaways as I want to kind
Mhm,
of rephrase. So one, having a structured onboarding process, week one, week two, week
mhm.
three, and having check-in calls to see how things are progressing. That's something that, as a practice, sounded very
Yeah.
interesting. Then having a buddy who you can kind of don't have to worry about what you end up telling them, right, or what you end up asking them. Having a buddy system from outside of your team, but at the same level, so you're able to comfortably ask them questions, stupid questions, right? I mean, you don't
Yeah.
have to think about whether you're being judged or not, right?
Correct.
Number three is like if you're fixing it after hiring, you already made a blunder. So hire
Correct.
the right person, individual contributors, than people who uh,
Yes.
kind of have, need to have the control over, right?
Hmm.
And then taking them through your various courses, right? How you do work, Slack
Yeah.
training, how to use tools,
Correct.
what expectations to set while you're doing a sync. So all those kind of
Hmm.
things is something you said as like things that have addressed a large part of the problems when it comes to employee onboarding. And the trivia, right? You said to know the person as a person, and his or her interests, and how do you
Hmm.
connect with them? What are the conversation starters? Hey, you like this music, or you like that game,
Yes.
and did you see that
Correct.
match? What do you think about Virat Kohli being shut
Yeah.
down? So all those things you kind of know how to kind of have those conversation starters or icebreakers when
Yeah.
you catch up with somebody. So I think these are interesting things that I think others could kind of model upon, right? Now getting to the second topic of the session, right, about engagement.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So rather than kind of asking you how you do about it,
Yeah.
if I may ask, right, can you take some anecdotal examples or interesting incidents or funny incidents that have happened,
Yeah.
and with respect to employee engagement at Springworks. And while you do that, I'll also love you to talk about the interesting story behind trivia
Sure.
and how that happened, please.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. So I think engagement is like two, three things, right? One is rewards recognition, kind of listening to employees through like a pulse or a feedback, AMAs, whatnot, and then kind of the non-work aspect, which is like team bonding and through games and Pictionary and trivia quizzes and virtual coffee and stuff like that, right? So say starting from say rewards recognition, so we initially used to say, okay, you have a person who's helped you on fixing a piece of bug, or setting up your computer because it's just suddenly crashed, or there is you had this one say technical problem to solve and you were not able to figure out. You spend time on Stack Overflow, spend time online, but you were just not able to figure out, and someone else kind of helped you internally, right? How do you recognize that person?
Mm,
In the traditional way, there was nothing, right? So most of the cases you will just tell your manager, oh, this person actually helped me, and that person will kind of bring it up to the chain, and then they will kind of do something at the annual recognition or maybe quarterly, right? And now what we do is, our example is we have a Slack channel known as Gratitude, and then we have an app known as Engage With, and where people are able to recognize instantly, and so you do a kudos or a shout out, and you are saying, thank you, Sham, for helping me fix this bug. Here's whatever 20 points for you. Points get converted to rupees. Rupees get converted to Amazon gift cards, right?
mhm,
So the person who's done something good, has seen a tangible benefit, maybe like
mhm,
a coffee mug on his or her desk in a week, right? Maybe like a new badminton racket you wanted to buy, stuff like that, right? So I've seen something tangible, which is very important. And then all of this is kind of attached to a company value, right? So like, for us, values are like own your work,
mhm,
teamwork, think from a customer's perspective, stuff like that, right? An example here is, we had a person who kind of recently got elevated as got promoted as a manager, and one employee just happened to do a recognition one day and said, thank you, Sri Vikram. You've been a great manager. I know it's not been easy, going from like an individual contributor to a manager, and you're leading a team, and you've been very, very good in helping us, solve our doubts, and helping us say communicate to the product team and the ops team and stuff like that. And you obviously been doing your own thing, right? So wrote a very nice, heartfelt message, like around whatever 5-6 lines, and this was sent through this Engage within our gratitude channel. And then it was so nice to see that 23 people, 24, 25 people, added on to that recognition.
right, right,
And everyone said, oh, wow, same thing, plus one, added a bunch of, lines from their side.
right.
This person, it was all heartfelt thanks. It was not from, this person's manager. It was not from me. It was all kind of peer driven, right?
Mhm,
Very, very nice for that person. As a lead, the tangible aspect, the person would have made whatever. like a decent amount of money, 10, 15,000, just because of these recognitions. But more importantly is that social recognition from not one person, multiple people having that, just as a thanks, right? It's
Right.
just nice to see that we live in this gratification world, right? You post something, as you see something nice in the physical world, you take a photo, you post it on Instagram, you want likes. If you don't get likes, you're like, what is happening, right? Or you send it to your family group, like,
Yeah.
why is no one responding? I want to share, right? We are all social animals at the end of the day, and we want to share
Mm.
and get that appreciation back. So I think this is very, very good. We have seen kind of engagement on this go from, say, 25-30% to now 90-95%, and people love it, and people are now like they are looking forward to this, and people want to do this, right? They're like, yes, if I do this, I'll get a recognition, and I want to do this kind of positive behavior. And you are kind of always thinking from that direction, right? So it kind of helping the company move towards a better place. So that's one example. Then
I think so.
second
Just
is,
want to add a side note there, Karthik, right? But doing this more publicly kind of also encourages more people to come out and help, right? Otherwise, like,
yes,
you just don't know, right?
correct,
Yeah, I mean, why should I? And again, with remote, right?
yeah,
You might say like, hey, it's not my job, right? It's
correct,
not my.
correct,
But then when things are getting recognized, open, I think it kind of encourages a lot more helpful culture, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And it also kind of breaks silos, right? Because you, the sales team will be like, oh, what is everyone in the dev team thanking everyone, what did happen? And they're like, oh, there's a new release which went out, and this is what the release about, right? So we kind of create that excitement, and
Correct.
some FOMO is also there, right? So that's nice.
Yeah.
And then second example would be doing like an AMA, right? So we have like a Google form where you post a question, which is like completely anonymous, no tracking, no email address, stuff like that, and then comes to me directly. It does not go to the HR or anyone in the company.
Mhm.
And people are able to say, okay, oh, I am having, we talk about async, but we're seeing this meeting happening every day, can we improve? Or we have this we have this, say, one person in the company who's just not very comfortable, maybe it's a manager, maybe maybe it's something else, or they'll be like, we have this kind of one perk, but it's actually not being used, right? So like Zomato was a good example of this. We used to give out these Zomato vouchers of
Mhm.
every Friday on the birthday, and I actually never did enough research, but Zomato is not in every single city in India, right? um, Actually, it's not in most cities, right? It's in very few cities, and
Mhm.
it not cover the entire company.
Mhm.
And people who were not in a city which is serviced by Zomato, or like, say, our health insurance, or like other similar perks, they were feeling left out, and that's very wrong, right?
Right. Right.
Because they should not, right? As in, if the goal of the company was to give a perk to the employees, and now you're saying only 20% or 40% of the company can actually utilize. So this came up in the AMA. They're like, why did we decide to go with Zomato if I live in Jammu and I have nothing here? So why, how does it even matter to me? So why do
Mhm.
we say it's a perk, right? Yeah, that was like an eye opener thing. It's a very it's a nice example, and it's the only way you get this true anonymous feedback,
Right. Right.
and because it's anonymous, and you have to action on it. So every single message which I get, every single question I get, I post it like publicly in a channel in Slack, and then kind of do an answer on it, right? And then you're able to course correct, because otherwise it will have that frustration. People will talk about it internally in smaller groups, and then we'll just kind of increase frustration level, and then it will either go on your LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and it will just lead to higher attrition,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
Here the benefit is they have an outlet, right? And which is very important, right? Feedback, anonymous feedback helps. And then if you are doing, if you're taking it, and if you're responding to it, which is kind of taking action, that's very, very important. And not everything can be solved, right? So sometimes, like, we got now this I think one company in Jaipur gave like a leave for what is this TV series, Money Heist, right? So they gave leave on this Money Heist new season
Final
launch, right?
season. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got that in my aim. I'm like, yeah, as in, it's a gimmick, it's something we don't want to do and doesn't make sense. And, especially with remote, you would, you have that flexibility to take
You have it
up
anyways,
leave.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, you have it anyways, right? So I think, as in, but it's nice to kind of at least get that outlet, right? So for I guess managers and CEOs and founders out there, like you don't have to just say yes to everything, but it's good to acknowledge it,
Yeah.
post it, because people know that you are listening to them, right?
Correct.
And
Correct.
if you are listening to them, if they have that feeling, they will
Intent is
continue
what
to
is
give
important,
feedback.
right? The intent that you're transparent and you kind of are acknowledging everything, and I mean,
Correct.
and that kind of encourages them to come back with more questions, right? Otherwise,
Yes.
you're going to die. This is going to die
Yeah.
very quickly. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And explaining the why, right? So if you, I think if you explain the why, even behind like a new feature or a new policy, or
Right.
say why did we hire a new person, why do we need a manager, or like things like that. I think kind of explaining the why is very, very important, and that comes from respecting,
Right.
people, and then kind of having an employee first culture, right? So I think that would be the second example. And then say talk about trivia. So we have
Mm.
like a water cooler. So we post like what's the most say daring thing you have done, or what's the most famous celebrity you have met, right? It's just nice, like a conversation starter. People post about it, and you start developing these connections, and offline. When I say offline, I mean outside of that, on a one or two public forums, right? Like on a DM or like a one-on-one call. And that's just very nice to kind of get that connection. And we have uh, we have seen very good kind of increase there. Like engagement goes anywhere from say 10% to 50% to 60, 70%, right? And what kind of gets most engagement is which is kind of custom and more personalized quizzes and
Mm.
questions, right? So we like recently we did a trivia on our health insurance policy.
Okay.
So a lot of folks, will not know what's your room rent limit. How do I, get a cashless reimbursement? Can I cover my, I don't know, LASIK surgery, right? Can I, cover my parents? Can I cover my, wife? I recently got married. How do I cover it? Small things like that. And then I'm sure every single company has a document, and you're asking employees to go through that document. It's boring, right?
Yeah.
And you're not really educating. You're like, okay, they'll think about it when they have the, right? Why not do a survey on it? It's way more fun. You are guessing, you're learning, and then you're guessing if you don't know the answer, and if when as soon as time limit 30 seconds finish, you see the answer someone else has already learned. People actually prepare for it, and you kind of have that healthy competition. Oh, I know more about this than you. So I think we've seen a lot of engagement on that,
So how
and just
frequently do you run these at Springworks, Karthik?
yeah, so we right now we do three a week, so three kind of know your team quizzes. So now one quiz per person, so 5 questions on them, and then we do like this one custom company quiz, once in every say 2 weeks, right? Maybe on a new launch, maybe on a new feature, maybe on like the Springworks history, maybe on one of the policies, the HR policies where we have, maybe on like a recent product hunt launch, stuff like that, right? So I
Mm.
think it's a nice way to kind of get to know the company, and it's
Right.
kind of helps build these bonds as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and again, so kind of switching
Mhm,
gears from your experience at Springworks, right? So,
mhm.
a lot of the software that you've built is
Yeah.
also helping other companies do similar to what you're doing now, right? So, from
Mhm.
your onboarding to engage with to trivia and all that,
Yeah.
right? So, any interesting anecdotal examples from companies that use? Uh,
Mhm,
Again, the other question I would also answer is like,
mhm,
again, I'm probably dumb not knowing this. You said engagement went from 10% to X
mhm,
percentage to Y percentage. So how do you measure that? Uh,
mhm.
I know in one of your blogs you talked about employee NPS scores
Yeah.
and things like that. So if you could uh, uh, distill that out a little bit, explain to how
Sure.
can somebody, how can a CEO or founder or HR team measure
Mhm.
engagement, right?
Yeah.
And in like unbiased ways.
Sure. So I would say the first step is to do an employee NPS, right? So which is like you do it for customers, how happy are you with our, say overall, process? Would you, on a scale of 1 to 10, would you be willing to refer a friend at work, right? So things like that, two or three questions, all kind of 1 to 10, all anonymous, and you get this passives, detractors, and promoters score, and you get a number, right? Anything more than zero is positive, but you want to be ideally 60, 70, there, right? So that's like Adobe's say 71. Adobe's kind of known for culture, and they're at that level even with that's so many employees, right? So you can easily be higher.
Right.
Um, So I think that's the first step to do, right? It's anonymous, it's easy to run, you get the highest response rate on it, and then you get a nice benchmark. So you do that, now, and then you take steps to, course correct, right? Maybe it's kind of breaking these silos, right? So measuring that with whatever events you're doing, seeing how many people are participating in your weekly chai calls, or you get an external party to come to an event. You have 100 people, how many of them participated, right?
Mhm.
And how many reminders did it take for you to get that participation? As in, if you're doing one reminder, then it's fine. If you have done 10, then it's not really, great, because that's not what you want.
Right,
Then doing things like these kind of employee pulse. How much time does it take for you to get an answer? How many hours in meetings are you spending? What would you like to kind of change, right?
right,
I think these kind of analytics also get you the answers about, oh, I'm spending a lot of time on meetings and different work, and I'm actually not getting a lot of work done, and that's means it's a signal to improve the way you work, right?
right,
And so the way we measure, in how Trivia and Engage with measures for our clients, is how many people participate on a quiz, on a game, Pictionary, whatever it is, right? And those analytics are going to send to the HR and the company.
mm,
Same thing on
mm,
the engagement rewards recognition pulse, right? What is
right,
the response rate? How many reminders does it take to get that response rate? How
right,
many people are recognizing? How many people are being recognized? And what values are they recognized for, right? So you get that, nice little kind of analytics dashboard, and that just helps you, tell, okay, this is where it's moving, which manager, which department is seeing the most recognitions. And then the HR, oh yeah, there's something in this department which is, not many recognitions. People are not, NPS score for this department or manager is low. Let me, actively go spend time on it,
right,
right?
right,
So small things like that, I think, has a, big impact, right? So it's just rethinking every small thing, right? Like we have moved stand-ups to automated, like not every day, once a week, maybe twice a week, depending on the team, and then focusing more, using that time to talk about discussions and, questions and, architecture and stuff like that. We've, like, in our planning grooming sessions, we order, like lunch, and then you are able to kind of connect outside of just pure work, right? So small things, I think, are nice. I think there was a question as well that, how do you manage to engage techies, right? Techies are, as in, people at the end of the day, right? And how do you, do that, is they also have the same interests as anyone else, right? How do you kind of get those interests? How do you kind of help them build that
right,
bonds? So we do these lunches, we use like an icebreaker in a stand-up meeting. Techies hate meetings, right? They don't like these manual, updates. Oh, you're asking me for update, every 2 hours, why should I give, right? So kind of automating all this manual work, and then using that time to actually, focus on the non-work aspect, getting to know them better,
right,
doing a small, event, doing like a lunch, doing like an icebreaker question, playing a, Pictionary game with them, playing Counter Strike with them, like stuff like that, right? So I think that works very very well. So if you're able to, build like a bond at a deeper level, you generally have better, retention.
right.
Because retention is nothing, like, there are three reasons a person leaves, right? One is salary, second is, growth, and third is just culture.
Yeah,
I think salary and growth is mostly industry related, company related. Like, there may be a reason you're not able to pay this much, especially with the way India is, going towards. But you can definitely control culture, right? And that's what will drive your employer branding, will drive more organic applicants,
right,
people to stick, for longer times, and people to also come back. It's, some capacity.
correct.
Maybe as a freelancer consultant, maybe as a mentor, maybe, as a full-time employee, at some point, right? Things like that.
And you certainly don't know. You certainly want. I mean, your past employees are good referral channels, right? You
Hmm.
certainly want them to be flag. I mean, again, they should mouth good things about the company and the culture and how you do it.
Correct.
It didn't work for them, but it will certainly work for some other colleague or
Yes.
ex-colleague or friend of theirs.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's a good point. So I always say, if you can get an review at exit, right? Say maybe 1 week after the person has exited the company, like, that's the best possible signal. The person has said something positive about you on a public forum, like, that means you've done your job well, right?
right,
Because as in at that point the person has nothing to do with the company, has no bias, no reason to write something positive. The only reason the person is writing something positive is because they really liked working
Really
there.
mean it from the.
um, yes, and that's like the biggest possible, kind of up you can get, right?
Absolutely. So again, one
Mhm.
tangential question here, right? You've grown from 95,
Mhm.
doubled in size or more than that,
Yeah,
right? So how
yeah.
much of you committing to remote first? How much has that given you a competitive advantage in the hiring market? Has it made a lot of difference in kind of attracting the right talent, or
Yeah,
yeah, just want to curious
yeah.
about
So I think a big, like, ma- a big portion of hiring has been because of remote, right? And we have had that question coming from candidates. We've had, we've hired most of the people actually out of Bangalore. So I think that has really, really helped. And the employee reviews is what kind of mostly helps. So we have 228 reviews on Glassdoor with 4.7 rating, and feel like we get lots of organic applicants every month, right? People who are like, oh, I've been told about this company by my cousin or by my
it. Right.
whatever friend, and that's why I applied. So we get this kind of organic applicants almost all the time, right? And they are the best employees because they already know about the company. They have that high intent. They're not kind of spraying and praying, right? So remote and the way we work, which is async,
And more
employee
importantly, I think
first.
these people know what kind of people fit into the company better, right?
Yes,
Than
yes,
than
yes.
your interview process, right? If I
Correct.
right, so then they've already done the vetting process. Hey, this guy will
Yes.
work in an async first mode or not.
Correct. Correct.
So
Correct.
that's already like kind of taken care of when the referral candidate comes in.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think increasingly, like employees are already at a driver's seat, and increasingly they are now taking the decision that okay, this is the type of company I want to work at, right?
Right, right,
And I'm okay taking a salary hit if I have to, right? I'm okay making whatever 20%, 30% less, right? uh, because I know I'm going to be working 8 hours a day versus 60. Right? And I think people are increasingly taking that view, right?
yeah,
And which used to be the case where like, oh, I'll go work at a government job or I'll go work at a bigger enterprise because a lot more stability and way less hectic. I think startups have kind of come in and say, oh no, no stability, complete, there's no structure, all
roller
chaos.
coaster. Come on,
Yeah, yeah. So all office and stuff like that, right? I think so that has kind of burned some people, and people are now like have reached a stable stage, and now they're thinking, okay, this is what I want to do. It's definitely a very interesting time, right? This is the first time, at the age of say 25, 30, like people are buying homes and have already reached a financial stability level, which is unheard of in a country like India, right? And now they're like, I think we know that we don't need to just work for money. We want to work for growth. We want to work for satisfaction. We want to
right.
have a better lifestyle.
Absolutely. I think so. The kind of looking back at the way we have worked, right? It kind of so unreasonable and irrational to have the office, which is a physical, lifeless thing,
Yeah,
and at the clock dictate so much of our life, right? So everything
correct,
revolves right, from your not just your job, but where your spouse can work, right?
correct.
Because you have a job here, and where your kids can study, what your kids can do,
School,
what they
yeah,
cannot do,
exactly.
right? Everything has been dictated by what kind of friend circle, community would you live in and have, right? So
Correct.
so many things have been dictated by two inanimate things, and
Yes, yes,
sounds so like stupid now looking back at that, right? So I think
yeah.
that
How
that
much time you spend with your parents, like, yeah, every small thing is
right,
dictated by where you work.
right, absolutely. And it's a transient thing, right? I mean, and it's not, gone are the days like
Yeah,
you start in a company, you retire in a company. Like my father never did that, and his father did. But now you don't expect that, right? And today, I mean, I used to be at a point in time when I'm reviewing resumes, I would see like, hey, this person has switched
yeah,
too often, so I don't know what
yeah.
to change, right? But now I think that stigma is gone, right? If people
Correct.
are moving for a reason, right, and if that reason
Yes,
you can give that reason to them, then they're going to stick along with you.
correct,
They're
correct.
good, really. Yeah. But so now that I mean, just for that few years of their lives, you kind of rewire your entire personal life for just that few years.
Yep.
I think that's a good realization that COVID has given all of us. I think, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I think we're at the end of the hour, Karthik, almost there. Any last words from you on companies that are committing themselves to remote first? Anything, a few thoughts that you want to leave behind? top challenges, top things that they shouldn't ignore, or what they should look at? Anything
Sure.
you want to add?
Sure. So I would say, focus on the way you work, right? Which is try to move towards async. That's very important. Try to kind of show the benefits of remote through different perks and offsites and things like that. And then the third would be having like an employee first culture, right? So kind of listen to employees is very, very important.
Right,
Rewards recognition is now increasingly becoming important, and kind of breaking these silos, right? Because the moment you move remote, you will have these silos. And, and how do you kind of break that? How do you have that team bonding? So this needs a good thought process, and it needs effort. It's not going to come naturally. You'll
right,
have to put in the effort. And now, thanks to the recent innovation, there are tools in the market to do this. So it's you're not coming in green, right? There is a lot of kind of studies and papers and blogs and how to do all of this.
right, right. And like with entrepreneurship and startups, right? The remote work community itself is there to help
Yes,
other startups that are taking this transition. I see that, right? So a lot of
correct.
people openly sharing what's worked for them, what's not worked for them, because they truly believe that
Yeah.
you have to collectively learn, right? I
Yes.
mean, you can't kind of crack everything all by yourself. And
Correct.
this
Correct.
is also the reason for this kind of events that you want to do. You want to kind of bring those voices and let everybody learn from that.
Yeah.
So this has been awesome, Karthik. I learned a lot. I think I've got a checklist of things that I need to do for my own startup after this meeting, and I'll kind of put it in a blog so that it's out there for everybody to read also later. And like I said,
Sure.
I think GitLab, Automatic, and I see Springworks there in terms of documenting everything about remote, everything about what could go right, what could go wrong, how do you fix that. So I see so much of content come from your team,
Mhm.
right? So it's kind of that's like I said, top three resources on remote work. Any company, whether you want to use Springworks or not, but do visit their website, because there's a ton of content out there on every topic under the sun when it comes to remote, and it obviously helps that they also have a software to solve for a lot of these things. Engage with the onboarding, the hiring,
Mhm.
background verification, trivia, and rewards recognition, so on and so forth. So do check out their software suite, see what works for your company, and do explore that. Karthik, thanks a lot for coming on. And like I said, I do consider Springworks as a flag bearer of remote, and it was great to host you, to listen from you, and a lot of interesting examples of what you had to fix in Springworks, and how other companies are also using the software that you provide to make this work for themselves. So thanks a lot for your time. Another topic under the sun, we'll reach out to you, see if we can get you one more time on so many things that you've done right with the remote at Springboard. So the ocean of knowledge there. So love to have you on another time on another topic.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks, Karthik. Take care. And this is the one of the few syncs that you've done probably, right? Everything else is async. Right? So we are live, and that's probably the only thing that we do sync today, hopefully, right?
This is the reason to do async is to free up time for this.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's like it's magic, right? When you don't have to be immediately responding, right?
Correct. Correct.
Hey, take care, Karthik. A pleasure
Yeah.
talking to you. Awesome. Lot of interesting inputs for others to consider, and definitely for us to consider.
Perfect. Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.
All the best. Yeah.